Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I love the nurses that come and see me.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Since I've learned about Angel Care, I would recommend them to anybody.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always to the producer and editor of our series, Jeff Durall. Also for camera work today from Brandon Cooley from Eagle Community Television. We're at Custer Hall on the campus of Fort Hays State University with the Chief of the University Police Department, Ed Howell, serving 30 plus years at Fort Hays State University. Ed, let's begin, if we could, with the new digs here at Custer Hall. I like what you've done to the place.
Well, I can't take sole credit for that because this is more of a university proposal and implementation. I did have some effect as to the design and how it was implemented. So with that said, I wish I could say that it was actually new, but we've been here probably since 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm. But such an improvement, Ed. Such a vast improvement over the old facility.
It is, and it helps us carry out our mission, and that is to provide public safety here at Fort Hays State University. We went from effectively 800 and some odd square feet to what we have now, which is over 5,000 square feet.
And incorporated within this facility things you needed to do your job.
Sure. That
you weren't able to do in the old place.
In the old place, we were so cramped for space. Oftentimes, it was hard for us to even do interviews of a victim of a crime, whether that be a rape, whether that be a burglary case, whatever the circumstances are. The space did not allow a conducive environment to interview that victim. Now we have a space that's allocated specifically for the interviewing, whether that be a person of interest and or a victim.
Mm-hmm. And now, here at the new facility, you have an entryway, you have secured locations, you have areas for comfort, for safety of the officers and the personnel here.
That's correct. We are located, and I like to refer to it as the Garden View area, Custer Hall. And part of the reason for that is it's not in the basement. Because if you look out the windows actually hit you about mid-thigh. Mm-hmm. So that's why I refer to it as the Garden View area. But we're in a secured facility. We have an open lobby area for day-to-day transaction, business, parking, wherever the case may be. But when we do our business, everything after that door is in a secure environment.
Let's talk a little bit about the methodology of the project for the National Center for Campus Public Safety. Tell us about that, Ed.
I had an opportunity. In fact, I thought it was kind of a unique opportunity. It started as an email, and then it escalated to a phone conversation. But I was invited to a project that was sponsored by the Bureau of Justice Authority, and in conjunction with the National Center for Public Safety. And the topic at hand was concealed carry on campuses. Now, it wasn't to define a policy of best practices. Part of the methodology relates to take the information and provide a roadmap, because there's several different nuances for each state and university that's applicable that you have to take into account. One of the things that the final report will produce is a nonpartisan, non-political perspective of the lessons that we've discussed, which was facilitated in a group environment. And that was for 2 days down in Texas. Mm-hmm. We had 24 agencies that were represented. That included both federal, give you an example, ATF, FBI. You had a variety of different universities from Florida to Kansas to Oregon, Colorado, Missouri. So it was a good cross-representation.
What was the takeaway, Ed, as far as what the conference did, what the outcomes are, what the public needs to know about that?
Well, part of that relates to the implementation of whatever policy that is applied at whatever jurisdiction. The purpose of the forum in and of itself was to take all those nuances for consideration and identify them for the development of that policy. Kind of, as I said before, serves as a roadmap. Mm-hmm. The final report has not been published yet, but the rough draft that we just signed off on is over 40-some pages, and I do anticipate that being published probably here in the next 60 days.
What about the safety aspect? I think this is something probably that parents, that staff, that professors, that all university personnel would be worried about as it relates to the subject of concealed carry on campus.
And again, you're kind of constricted, or I should say restricted, because the statute has to be, the policy has to be in adherence to the policy. So whatever state that you're actually in will determine what you're able to regulate from a safety perspective. Mm-hmm. But by comparison, what we're doing here at Fort Hays State University, as an example, the way that our statute reads is that we have the right to regulate how a weapon is carried. So as an example, part of our policy at Fort Hays will be that you cannot carry a handgun that is loaded, mm-hmm. meaning that you can't have one directly in the chamber or directly behind the firing pin of a revolver. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that the magazine cannot have rounds in it, but directly in the chamber, ready to go, that's one of the things by statute that we're able to regulate. Additionally, we're able to determine and within our policy scope, identify the method to restrain that firearm while you're carrying it concealed. Mm-hmm. And also ensuring that you are carrying it concealed where it's not open to public viewing.
Tell me about the...
One other thing I might add to that is storage devices. While the university will not provide storage devices, but it defines how that needs to be stored in a safe manner.
Like in a dorm room, apartment, that type situation.
Yeah, you don't want the gun just laying on the table.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If it's not on your person, then that's part of the requirement. It either has to be on your person or in a approved storage device.
The Kansas legislature did not even bring up for debate the campus carry issue. Right. Any response to that?
Well, that's what we have our legislation for.
Tell me about the officers' response. How did the officers come down on this? What's their view
on concealed carry?
On concealed carry.
Well, anytime that you have an individual with a firearm, there could be a potential for an escalated event. Okay, but also on the other hand, you have a lot of citizens out there that are law-abiding, that are going to adhere to the laws, and they have that constitutional right of carrying concealed. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a balancing aspects to how the officer responds. You know, you have a certain amount of legalities that are associated with it when you're approaching an individual with a firearm. It's not like it used to be where if an individual had a firearm on campus, there was a known result because that was prohibited by statute. Mm-hmm. That is no longer the case now. So our response to that also had to change to make sure that we have the appropriate reaction, not an overreaction, but an appropriate reaction.
And the officer's job just got a whole lot more complicated.
Well, guns have always been out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it used to be identified only with people that are doing bad things carrying a firearm. Kansas at one time completely prohibited the concealed carry. And then they migrated to, you got through a licensure process, you're able to carry concealed, and now you're here where you are today where it doesn't require that licensure.
How many officers work in the University Police Department?
There's a total of 9 of us. That does include me.
What are the duties? What's the overall scope of the responsibility for the officers?
It can range from everything from parking enforcement to working a sexual assault. Unattended deaths. We don't have very many of those, but that has happened. So it's a gambit of things.
And they have to be trained for each individual
Sure.
circumstance and situation.
Yeah, they're required, as any law enforcement officer, training requirements, whether that be the initial training, in addition to the 40 hours in service training per year. We also have concurrent jurisdiction in the city, and basically that's one of the partnerships I'm going to talk about a little bit later, that provides assistance off campus. So meaning, can my officers go off campus and enforce city municipal ordinance? Yes, they can. However, our primary focus is at Fort Hays. So we're there to supplement depending upon the circumstances, but not be the primary responder within the city. Also, the officers are deputized to the county.
One of those areas that's probably as high profile as any, Ed, is the bike patrol. And back in March of 1995, Fort Hays State University Department of Police and Public Safety established the bike patrol unit.
Right.
Tell us about that unit.
Well, again, that's another thing that's kind of progressed. We started off with one officer back in 1995. I believe the bike was one of the bikes that was found to be abandoned that we felt that could be used for that process. Now we have 2 dedicated bicycles that are your standard equipped bicycles at the professional level, and we have a total of 4 officers that are now affiliated with it. So that's essentially not quite half my department.
And they operate on what kind of a framework? What kind of time frame situation?
It's usually circumstantial. Oftentimes we'll use it when the weather's good. When I have 2 officers working one shift, as an example, and part of the premise behind that is it gives you an opportunity not to have that barrier between the public and the officer, especially when we have all the events that we have, whether that be commencement, football games, basketball games, whatever the circumstances are. Another good example of that would be is when we have our snake dance and homecoming. It gives the officer an opportunity to be out there with the individuals, but it still provides them with a mobility.
It's more that community touch type
Sure.
situation, isn't
You
it?
bet.
There's also something else that has been put into place, August of 2016, I believe it was. LifeSafe, it's called, the mobile safety application.
Yeah, that was driven by SGA, Student Government Association. It was a self-initiative from their perspective as it relates to public safety, which I entirely agree with, and that provides you a lot of different modalities. It's using technology for a lot of the things that relate to public safety, whether that be calling 911 and or reporting tips, or even maintenance issues. Another feature of that is if you have that software that's downloaded on your smartphone, and you want to have somebody monitor where you're going from, let's say you went out and you were socializing somewhere and I'm walking home, you can have a friend actually view that and see where you're at to make sure that you arrived.
And it's called the
LiveSafe.
mobile safety
Yeah.
application, LifeSafe.
And that is available. Initially it was targeted for the Fort Hays clientele, but anybody within our area can use it. It also provides you a lot of information on there. It gives you locations of our buildings. It gives you publications as it relates like to the Safe Ride, taxi services, so on and so forth. So it's kind of a wealth of information at your fingertips.
Instead of being at the kiosks that used to be around the
still
campus
have
that are
them.
still there.
And our kiosks are now digital.
Oh, wow. Didn't realize that.
Yes.
So instant communication is available then.
Right. We have the call boxes at the kiosk, but also you have digital signage that are there that inputs a lot of information or outputs a lot of information as it relates to the messages that we want to give our community.
Campus Public Safety with the Chief of the University Police Department, Ed Howell, our Community Connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hays and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
My Angel Care physical therapist taught me how to do exercises safely.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
It gives us independence in our home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.